Hello and welcome to a Gallery Teachers Masterclass. I'm Krisia Justesen, and this class is called Just Do It and Other Confidence Strategies That Don't Always Work. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. So first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today, and I applaud you for working towards making yourself a better teacher. In this masterclass, I'm going to help you understand why some students get stuck applying what they've learned outside of the classroom. And I'm going to share with you some strategies that some concrete strategies that you can use to help them. So first, I want you to tell me something. Is this you? If so, write number 1 in the comments. My students are doing fine, so I'm pretty sure I'm already doing what it takes to help them to be more confident. If that's something that you would say, go ahead and write number 1 in the comments. I'm going to give you 3 different options, so you might want to wait until all 3 come up. Number 2, I know some of my students have confidence issues, and I've tried, but I don't know how to help them. So if that's you, write number 2 in the comments. And if this is you, I'm a teacher, not a coach. I teach them the English they need to know. What they do with it is up to them. So if that's you, write a number 3 in the comments. Are you 1, 2, or 3? And if you're a combination, go ahead and put more than one number. And if there's something else that you're thinking about learner confidence, go ahead and write it in the chat, and we'll talk about it together at the end. But I want you to know that whichever one of these you are, or even if you're something else, then we are here today to learn some useful strategies and techniques, but also share what you're doing, what's working for you or what's not working. So please stay to the end for the conversation. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Krisia Justesen, and this is a picture of my family. I'm married and I have 2 kids. I live in Denmark. My husband's Danish, but I'm originally from Bermuda. This is actually the 8th country I've lived in. I've taught English in Spain, Turkey, and now Denmark. My English teaching journey started in 2005. I did the CELTA course in Barcelona at International House. And from there, that was just my jumping off point because I went on to teach at an English school, but I worked in an immersion course. I then became the head teacher and the teacher trainer at that course. And I started to focus a little later on business English because I taught adults mainly. And now here in Denmark, I have my own business, and it's focused on helping adults in the business world improve their English through daily practice, and that's Lightning English. I do this through online courses, in-person courses, and coaching. I also specialize in helping women build their confidence and their competence to use their English at work. So that's me, and I'm going to share with you now where we're going today in this masterclass. We're going to start with the confident ESL student, and we're going to talk about how confidence shows up in our students. Then, is it our job to help our students to be more confident? I'm going to share a little bit about what we as teachers do and how we inspire confidence in students. And then we're going to look at who might be slipping through the cracks. Next is more than just do it. These are additional strategies for boosting students' confidence appropriately. And the final section is it working? We're going to look at reviewing and revising strategies and techniques over time. So after this, we're going to have a wonderful opportunity for interaction, Q&A, and conversation about these strategies and the factors and confidence in general. So this is the part I'm really looking forward to. So stay with me until the end. So let's start with the confident student. A confident student has a realistic sense of his or her capabilities, and that's really important. They have the conviction that they can meet challenges and succeed, and the confident student is willing to act on that conviction. So this confidence that we're talking about, it's not just a feeling. We're talking about the action that students take as a result of this confidence. So what are the benefits of that confidence for the student and also to the class as a whole and for us as teachers? A confident student is motivated to learn and improve. They prepare for class, they're engaged and ask questions when they're not sure. and they embrace challenges, academic, business, and social challenges, and they participate in and contribute to discourse outside of the classroom environment. We're looking here not only at creating confidence in the classroom, but how students themselves can be confident so that they can take what they've learned and use it outside of the classroom. And so I'm sure you can agree that this kind of student, the confident student, is great to have in our classes, and it's a benefit to everyone. So I want to ask you an important question before we go even further. I want to ask, and you can put a quick yes or no answer in the chat. Is it our job to inspire and nurture confidence in all of our students? So go ahead and put your yes or no answer in the chat. And if you want to give a reason, go for it. But I'm going to share with you my answer. And I think the answer to this question is no. And I know this may be controversial, but I'm going to share where this came from. When I look back at my CELTA experience in becoming a teacher, and also my experience in teaching by the book and conversations with my colleagues about it, it looks like this is the conclusion that I come to. But let me explain. I took this from the Trinity College London website, where they talk about what is communicative language teaching. And here's a little excerpt from it. It says, accuracy is important, but doesn't need to be the main goal. A student who communicates more information with a few mistakes is more likely to communicate successfully than one who conveys very little with no mistakes. The approach is designed to motivate students to communicate. So what this says is that our training is designed to motivate the students to communicate, but it doesn't actually teach us how to do this for ourselves. It's built into the system. And so let's look at some of the things that we as teachers do. We present the students with the material. We give them ways to practice in the classroom. We correct errors. We test their knowledge, and many other things that we do as teachers. If you have something important you want to add, put it in the chat. But here's the thing. There's an assumption that's built into the system. And that is that if we provide students with the skills they need and give them opportunities to practice and master those skills, students will feel confident enough to take their classroom experience out into the real world. And this makes sense, doesn't it? We're assuming that if we give our students competence in language skills, this will automatically translate to confidence in English. We're also assuming that the students are going to take their experience from the classroom and apply it in the real world. If we do a good job and the students do their part and learn what they need, they'll be able to go out and use their English. That's our assumption. But there's a problem with this. There are a lot of students who fall through the cracks. Not all students respond in the same way to the material. I know this because I've built an entire business on helping these people, the people who have fallen through the cracks. These are people who have learned the skills, they've done the practice, they've passed the exams, but they can't seem to make it work outside of the classroom. So let's go back to that assumption. We're looking at competence translating to confidence. But the reality for some students, and these are the students I generally work with, is that they are competent. Their competence increases, their English improves, but they still don't get the confidence that they need to apply what they've learned. So in some cases, they even become less confident as they learn more, and they realize that they're making mistakes, or they're potentially making mistakes, so they become less confident with their English. I've noticed some patterns here. So there's a disparity that occurs when the classroom environment is very different from the real world. We create a classroom environment where everyone gets a chance to speak, everyone's opinion is valued, students are all treated as equals, students are at about the same level in most cases. Listeners are primed to understand when our students speak. Mistakes don't reflect badly on the individual, and confidence is considered a good thing. But this is not usually reflected, all of these things aren't always reflected in the real world. And not all students are in the same situation here, because for some students, this difference between our classroom and the real world is greater than for others. Now, I'll give you an example. I work with mostly female students because years ago, I started to notice some trends in my classes. And I've done a lot of reading to find out what's actually going on. And gender inequality is a really complex issue. And this isn't really the time or place to get into that. But just the meat of the matter is that in the classroom, these things are true. You know, there's this equality that we build, but in the reality, in the real world, women face very different challenges from men and different expectations. And this means that it can be harder for them to translate what they've learned and developed in the classroom to the real world. And my specialty is in women, but this is not only women. These kinds of disparities are experienced by all different students, and it could be on the basis of class, race, economic status, nationality, gender identity, sexuality, all learning challenges, disabilities, and a host of other factors that mean that the classroom experience, even if you created an exceptional classroom environment for your students, it's not enough for them to build the confidence that they need to take their English out into the real world. These students are unable to just learn it and then just do it. Okay, this isn't enough for them. They need more. So I'm going to go back to the question I asked a little while ago. And that was, is it our job to inspire and nurture confidence in all of our students? And I believe that it isn't our job because this is built into the material. It's built into the courses that we use and the system that we use. That's built in. It's designed to make them confident through competence. But knowing that it isn't working for all of our students, I suggest that it is not our job, but it is our duty, both as teachers, but also as human beings, to recognize that not everyone responds to the material in the same way, and that we should continue to develop ways to inspire and nurture confidence in all of our students. Let's go back to our roadmap. We started with the confident ESL student, and we looked at, is it our job and what we do and how confidence is built into the system, and how our materials inspire confidence in our students through competence. And we looked briefly at some people who may be slipping through the cracks in there. So what I'm going to share with you now is the more than just do it section. I'm going to share 4 techniques that I use successfully to help students who already have some competence. So I'm talking B1, B2, and above. They can already speak English, but I use these techniques to boost their confidence to a point where they can actually use what they know. So I use these most frequently with higher level students, but here's the thing. When you use them with A1 and A2 students, they're actually even more effective because the students get to start using English, using what they know as they learn. That confidence then is truly built in. They're demonstrating confidence as they learn. So let's go through these 4 points. Number 1 is coaching or mentoring. Now, I know I hate the mental pictures that I used to get when I heard the word coaching because it's very woo-woo. And I want to let you know that when I talk about coaching and mentoring, I'm not talking about anything specific and out there. I want you to find out students' goals, aspirations, challenges, and motives, and assist them on the path towards them. That's it. I found out after years of working with people successfully that what I'm doing is actually coaching. And so I'm not a certified coach, but these techniques are readily available all over the internet. If you can incorporate some of them into your classroom, as I have done, you will probably find that it will really benefit your students and help you as a teacher. So let's look a little bit more at this. And I want to be clear, I want you to incorporate these into your class speaking time and your writing homework. So we're not looking at having special coaching sessions or, group coaching in your classroom. I'm talking about integrating this as part of what you already do as a teacher. You can also use them in pre-course assessment questions, and you can use it with groups or one-to-one. This coaching will inform your lesson planning. So really listen to what your students are saying so that you can use this to guide what you're teaching them. I recommend using the GROW technique for coaching. And this, simply put, focuses on four things. The first is goals. So setting clear, achievable, time-bound goals. So you want your students to go from, I want to be better at English as a goal, to something like, I want to be able to make a 5-minute presentation in English at our quarterly meeting 6 months from now and answer all the questions that my colleagues ask. That's a specific goal. So helping your students to set clear goals, and I don't know if you know of the term SMART goals. We can talk about it more in the Q&A if you'd like. But setting proper goals that are actually achievable is a first step in this coaching process. Next is to assess the reality of the student's current situation. So you want students to really look at where they are, what they can do, and what situation they're in at the moment. And then address the obstacles or opportunities that they may be facing. The obstacles could be challenges with time or specific challenges in learning. The opportunities will be what you're offering them in the classroom. So you can link these to what you're doing. And the last thing is will. And this is really important. This is about determining the amount of effort that's required to reach their goals in the amount of time that they've stated, using their own, based on their own reality and the obstacles and opportunities that they have. So then they can make a commitment to do the work that's needed. And that's where we get these people who are motivated in the classroom and can increase their confidence because they're actually achieving something, they're achieving their goals. I like to incorporate coaching and mentoring in assessment questions, as I said, but also in conversation topics in the classroom, whether it's in a group or one-to-one, and in writing assignments. So that is the first strategy that I use to help my students to become more confident. The next is to take the classroom into the real world with some real world challenges. You want to assign some real world challenges so that you're not just simulating the real world in the classroom, you're actually getting your students out into the real world to try out the things that they've learned. And if you want to build confidence in this, there are some steps that are really useful. The first is to start where they are. You want to start with doing things that the students are already doing and just make little alterations so that they can use it to improve their English. And I'll give you some examples in a moment. You then want to take small steps to give them increasing challenge and get them quickly out into the real world. Because like I said, we're looking at a disparity between the classroom and the real world. So if they can be in the real world with your help and encouragement and assistance, that will help them to build the confidence that they need to continue without you. Another thing that's really helpful is to gamify this where it's appropriate. You can determine whether your students would benefit from a competitive or collaborative atmosphere, and then figure out how to make a game of it for your students. Again, I can give you some examples of this during the Q&A session at the end. Here's an example of what you can do with some real world challenges. I really like using social media because it's very difficult to find students now who aren't using social media. And so the first step would be to find out what social media they're already using, and then have them join or follow interest-related groups. And I want you to understand very clearly here, when I talk about interest-related groups, I'm not talking about groups about learning English. I think many of our students go on Facebook or go to Instagram and follow things about learning English. But I'm talking about groups that are related to their hobbies or the work that they do. You want to get them involved in interest-related groups and enter interest-related conversations. They can create social media posts and engage with the commenters. They can also make videos, and not about English, but about the things that they're interested in. And so here's an example. I had a student earlier this year who had a lot of difficulties at work. She wanted to speak English at work. And she had the skills. She definitely competent enough. She was high B2, C1 level. However, every time she felt like every time she was in a meeting where she needed to use English, she felt like she just couldn't do it. So I used real world challenges for her week by week to build up to a point where she felt confident using English. So we started the first week where she was already on Facebook. So I had her join a group. Now, she's a parent. Her work is social media marketing, but she's a parent. She has 3 kids. And so she was already in social media in parenting groups. So it was an easy step for us to find another parenting group in English with a lot of people in it. So there were enough comments that we could do this quickly. So we had her join a parenting group on Facebook. The next week, we had her look through the posts in the group. And over the course of the week, she had to like 10 posts, 10 different posts that she was actually genuinely interested in. The next week, her focus was on finding 5 posts to comment on and then answer all of the replies that came into her comments during that week. The following week, her challenge was to post a question in that group and respond to all of the comments. And the next week, she had to post a solution, something that she thought would be useful to other people in the group, and of course, respond to the comments there. She chose in that week to share an article that was interesting to her on parenting. And there were a lot of comments that came in, and she went through and answered all of them. Once she felt confident talking about these topics regarding parenting, I had her go in on the last week and join a Clubhouse club that was on parenting. I don't know if any of you know about Clubhouse. It's a wonderful audio-only real-time social media app. And students can come in, find rooms, and take part in discussions live. They're not recorded or anything, so it's all as is. So she joined a Clubhouse club on parenting and was able to talk about these topics that she had been discussing in the Facebook group. And so in this way, she created step by step, built up to feeling confident enough to have conversations in English. Of course, we followed this by going through the same process much more quickly, though, with things related to work. So she did the same thing. In the next 2 weeks, she joined some social media marketing groups on Facebook. She started getting involved in conversations. She got on Clubhouse and started talking about social media marketing, all in English. These are things within 6 to 8 weeks. She went from not being able to talk about things in English, even with her colleagues, to being able to talk to large groups of strangers about the work she was doing. My next strategy that I use to instill confidence in my students is goal-oriented teaching. And so once you use the coaching and you know your students' goals, you've helped them to state them in clear terms, there's some things that you can do to take this further. But the first thing is that it's really important to take your students' personal goals seriously. It's easy to kind of dismiss some things as being pie in the sky, but if you've helped them to make realistic, attainable goals, then the first thing you need to do is to take them seriously. Help them to break down their goals into small, achievable steps, and then incorporate their goals into examples and assignments. So when you're talking about, for example, when you're giving examples in your class, use their goals. Talk to them as if they're already there. If one of your students has a goal to, I don't know, travel and visit a lot of different countries, you can say, oh, but when you're in whatever country they've chosen that they would like to travel to, mention it so that they can actually visualize themselves achieving their goals, which makes it more likely for them to actually achieve them. So incorporate their goals into examples, and in your assignments, you can help your students to kind of tailor their homework assignments to their goals rather than just do a generic assignment. You also want to connect your lesson plans to their goals. So when you come in, you know what you're going to teach that day. Give them examples of what they're going to learn in that lesson will be useful once they've reached their goal. So if they want to work abroad, how would learning this grammar topic help them? What situations could they use it in? Last but not least, you want to continue to provide encouragement and guidance all along the way. And so one of the examples, I already mentioned it briefly, is a goal of working abroad. One of my students, he was at a C1 level, high C1, and his goal was to work abroad. And so when I was working with him one-to-one, and so when we talked about vocabulary, we focused on job experience. So I had him create his own CV in English. He had to find the vocabulary to talk about what he did. And of course, that vocabulary stuck because it was real for him. The reading, he had to research the websites of his ideal companies and get in there and see what words they use to talk about themselves and to talk about what they do so that he could use that same type of language when he used English. Listening, he watched videos from social media, so from YouTube, IGTV. He watched videos from his favorite companies that he was interested in working for. So instead of just finding, generic listening activities, it's great to find things that are really engaging for the students and are aligned with their goals. Grammar, one example is that when I taught present perfect versus past simple, we used the very focused example of talking about your experience, talking about work experience in an interview and in explaining who you are and what experience you have. That was really applicable for him. And that information stuck. And he felt at the end of that class ready to talk about these things. And of course, as a task for this student, I had him find an ideal job posting, create a cover letter, and actually apply in real life for that job. He didn't get the first one he applied for, but that's the one we did together. He felt confident enough at that point to continue doing this for other jobs. He tailored his cover letter, applied for a few other jobs, and it was about 3 months later that he got one of his dream jobs and is now working overseas. The fourth strategy that I use to help build confidence in my students is to encourage social groups. As teachers, we can only do so much. We're working with our students for a limited amount of time, and we want to encourage them to be able to go further. So one way is to encourage them to help each other. So one of the things that I do is encourage them to join or create social groups. And these can be online or in person. And they involve people with similar interests or goals. So it could be personal groups based around something that they like to do in their free time, but it could also be work related. They can go into groups on Facebook, like I said, in the challenges. But it could also be a matter of groups of students from the class getting together to really support each other in their goals, especially if they have a similar goal. It's really important in these groups to make sure that from the beginning that they're communicating only in English, because otherwise, what's the point? You're trying to help them to become more confident in English. It's really important to reiterate that they only speak English in these groups. And one way to do that is to encourage this group to grow and involve other people, especially other people who don't speak the same language as the other people in the group, so that they're forced to use English. So those are my 4 strategies that I use to help my students to become more confident. Do you have any ideas? If so, write them in the chat and we'll discuss them together. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you do to help encourage your students to be more confident. Some things that may not be in the textbook, but you've found successful. Or maybe there's something that you tried that was a major fail. Go ahead and share that as well. And we'll talk about it in the Q&A. So here we are on our roadmap, and we're here at the last point, and that is it working? It's really important to look back as we move forward. I use Michael Hyatt's system of planning my year. It's called Your Best Year Ever, and it's wonderful. And one of the keys is that you look back before you plan the next step. And so we need to keep track of what we've tried, what worked and what didn't. We want to give students opportunities to give us feedback and talk about their successes and challenges. And where it's possible, it's a really good idea to follow up and find out later what happened. Do spot checks on your students. You may have a couple of students you say, okay, after this class, in 2 months, in 1 year, and in 2 years, I'm going to check up on these 3 students and see what happened. Look at what you're doing and continually try to improve. I want you to keep checking the rear view mirror. And for some of you, it may actually look like this, but keep trying to improve yourself as a teacher. Look at what you're doing, take steps forward. And speaking of improving as teachers, there's some really useful master classes here from Gallery Teachers, and go ahead and check them out and get involved in the whole community here. There are lots of resources available for your continued development as a teacher. And if you become a pro member, you have access to the whole workshop library. It's absolutely wonderful. You can find all sorts of topics. Some students come into your class and they learn everything they need to know, and then they leave the class and are unable to use their English, while other students who were in the same class can go out and use their English right away. The difference is their confidence. If they have built up their confidence throughout the class and throughout your course, then they're able to translate what they've learned in the classroom into the real world. The problem is, some students don't have that same ability. Sometimes the difference between the classroom and the real world is too big for the confidence that they've built up in the classroom to actually come out with them into the real world. So what we need to do is look for ways to build confidence in those people who don't just automatically apply what they've learned outside. I spend my whole teaching career now working with these people. It's really exciting. It's really rewarding. And with some very simple techniques, you can actually make a difference in the lives of students who have a challenge building that confidence with the techniques that we normally use in the classroom. I want to improve my English isn't a clear goal. It's so fluffy and out there. Improve your English. How does that feel? What does that look like? When a student comes to me and says that they want to improve their English, I immediately come back to them and say, how? Why? What's your motive? What's your reason? And what exactly do you want to improve? We work together. We find out exactly what the student needs, and we make that into a real goal. There's a huge difference between I want to improve my English because I have to take the TEFL exam, as opposed to I want to improve my English because I want to make a presentation at work. There's a huge difference. We can't just accept improving English as a goal. So going deeper into what our students need is really, really important to helping them to achieve the confidence that they need to reach their goals. So don't just accept improving English as a goal or as a reason for people to work with you. We need to take it further. And I'm going to share with you how you can do that.